What's up, everybody? It's Miles Turner, the Indiana Pacers. You're listening to the Paceroos Podcast. Be sure to follow @Paceroos on Twitter.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Paceroos Podcast, the only Australian NBA podcast with a bias towards the Indiana Pacers. And it's been a surprisingly big week or big day in Pacers news. We're obviously looking for a new head coach, and there's a lot of news around about who that head coach might be. There was a report today from Adrian Wojnarowski, a rare Woj tweet about the Pacers, and Chauncey Billiups, Mr. Big Shot, finals MVP of the 2004 Detroit Pistons, who defeated Kobe and Shaq in a really surprise victory at the time. A long-time, confidant of a lot of NBA guards, a long-time, very, very well-respected NBA player and future executive or future coach, always thought of in that vein. And off the top, we need to talk about Chauncey Billiups, guys. Welcome, Justin and Alex, as usual. I'll start with you, Justin. Chauncey Billiups was named as a possible candidate for the coaching job of the Indiana Pacers. What's your reaction to that?
Yeah, I'm a massive fan. I messaged you guys as soon as Woj tweeted out his bomb, probably like 1 minute after. For me, I haven't been that excited about any of the potential candidates so far. Like that list that went viral with the sports betting odds of all the Pacers candidates with like Mike D'Antoni as favourite. I wasn't excited by anyone, but as soon as I saw the Woj bomb with Billups, I was like, wow, he's going to be the pick for me. He's new, he's unproven, which I personally want. I think Pacers have to look outside the box. He's played in the league. He's not a player that, I didn't know who he was like as a player. Like Nate McMillan, obviously I heard things, but Chauncey Billups, I personally watched his prime, with those Pacer battles in the Eastern Conference Finals. Chauncey Billups was the leader of that Detroit team. He's won a Finals MVP. And, there's that rumor going around that, he's built a relationship with some Pacer players. So for me, I know we'll touch on that a bit later, but for me, Chauncey Billups is probably my option A, B, and C.
Alex, that's a pretty strong endorsement from Justin of one of the candidates. There's been a lot thrown around, and we'll get to talking not too much about them because there's a lot of NBA that we want to talk, but I want to direct your attention to Chauncey for a second. You didn't watch Chauncey's prime like Justin and I did. There's a bit of an age difference there. You didn't get to see the 2004 finals probably as live as we did. So what's your thoughts on Chauncey, both as a player and a prospective head coach?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I didn't get to watch really any of Billups' career, but from all I've heard and from what I've seen today, a lot of people comparing him to Brogdon. So, when you look at reportedly, Brogdon had some beef with Nate McMillan. I don't know how true those rumors are, but if you're looking at a Pacers team who had that disconnect with a coach, and KP talked about this, he wants to get a guy who's more understanding of today's players. I think you look at Billups and he's that guy, isn't he? I think, you mentioned Mike D'Antoni earlier, Justin, and I think although I like him in theory, I think that if you're looking for a guy who's complete opposite of Nate and who's going to communicate with the players better and who's going to be a player's first coach, I think you've got to go with a former player, don't you? And I think
we're not getting Mike D'Antoni.
Yeah, I know. Especially after what I think their owner Dale Morey came out and said that he was their number one priority. So yeah, you're 100% right there. But obviously I'm not as big as a fan of him as Justin is apparently. But he's definitely up there, probably top 3 candidate for me.
Yeah, I was trying to think of some words that come to mind when I think of Chauncey Billups, and two I think came to mind in particular. One is respect, because I think he's got the respect of everyone that he played with. He was in demand there for a while. I think before his career got cut short, there was a move to get him to the Knicks, and he was one of the amnesty players on the Knicks when the amnesty clause was introduced. I think he had an Achilles injury or a knee injury. But he was supposed to form the big three with Melo and Amari Stoudemire there for a second. He was very, very well respected in Detroit. And also poise is another one that springs to mind. I was playing 2K the other day, and one of the badges there is ice in veins, a guy that can hit free throws in a late game situation. There is the first player I remember as a young man looking at and saying that guy can hit any free throw at any point in the game, whether it be double OT, 1 second left to win the game. Chauncey Billups was as automatic at the line as you could possibly want. And he clearly has a lot of poise. He clearly has a lot of, I guess, mental fortitude. And I think the underrated part about his career, you look at where he had the most success, Detroit. He played alongside Ben and Rasheed Wallace, two of the bigger personalities in the league, two of the guys that, you want to go to war with, but at the same time, they're 1 second away from doing probably something a little bit silly, as we saw Ben do in the Malice at the Palace, as we saw Sheed do with his relationship with the referees. And then in Denver, he got a young, impressionable Carmelo Anthony to the Western Conference Finals as the leader of that Denver Nuggets team, where they came very close to defeating Kobe in a championship year. So, you can't discount Chauncey Billups' accomplishments on the court, but you also can't discount the way that he played the game and the way that he approached the relationships that he had with his teammates. And if he brings the same approach to a head coaching role, I think the Pacers could do a hell of a lot worse than Chauncey Billups. And I'm hesitant to call him my absolute tippy-top candidate, but he's definitely up in my top 2 or 3 in no particular order, that's for sure.
He just quit. He just ticks a lot of boxes. Like,
yep.
you see KD and Kyrie Irving obviously advocate for Steve Nash. And you know why that is? Because he's a former player. He's a smart point guard. So these are things Chauncey Billups has as well, that, these players are going to play hard for him, because if Steve Nash pulls KD or Kyrie into line, they're not going to go, oh, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
Yeah.
They know Steve Nash has been there before. And Chauncey Billups has won the finals MVP. He's been on the biggest stages and done it before. You can't be a player and just scoff at, the coach telling you something when they've been there and done it.
He got traded for Allen Iverson and took Denver further than Allen Iverson did. Mm-hmm. And you know how respected Allen Iverson is as a player. But, Allen Iverson was a scorer. Melo was a scorer. Billups is a leader, a facilitator, a playmaker. His nickname is Mr. Big Shot, and he did hit a few big shots throughout his career. That nickname I've always tended to laugh at, because it's not as if he was hitting big shots every week. But he's clearly a very qualified candidate when it comes to being an NBA head coach. I want to talk about the relationship with the players, and Justin alluded to it earlier, Alex, that there may be a relationship with Oladipo and Brogdon. Do you think that hiring a coach like Chauncey Billups would be a sign that the organization wants to make good and repair any ill relationship with Oladipo and try and extend that olive branch?
Man, I think it's just, if he had 2 years left on his deal, 100%. But the fact that he's a 1-year rental, essentially, and that even if you make it to the second round, let's be honest, what's keeping him in Indy? I don't know if a coaching change really changes that much. If I'm being completely honest, we've said it the last couple of weeks. We're pretty, Justin, I'm sure you're 100%, but I'm about 98% that VO is not going to come back. So I think you have to maximize his value this offseason. And, I'm sure KP's already having these conversations. It's a tough one, but unfortunately, I don't think any coach is going to sway VO from leaving if he wants to.
Justin, is there any possibility that hiring a Chauncey Billups can convince Oladipo to stay? And do you want that to happen?
That's a good question there. When I was writing notes before the episode, and I wrote some positives about Chauncey Billups, and I wrote, has built a relationship with Brogdon and Oladipo, in brackets, useless. So that's kind of my opinion on it. I don't think, same with you, Alex, I don't think it will change anything with Oladipo. You guys know my thoughts on that, and I will be shocked if Oladipo resigns. I'm nearly willing to put everything I own on the line. Oladipo's gone. I've seen it all before. So I don't think Kevin Pritchard would hire a coach in the thought of hoping Oladipo stays for the coaching change. You're essentially then saying Oladipo only wanted out of Indiana because Nate McMillan, which I don't believe. So, to answer your question, no. Do I want it to happen? Yeah, of course I want Oladipo to stay a Pacer, but it ain't happening.
That's a sad truth. That's a very sad truth bomb. Look, I think it's definitely a sign that they want a coach that can build relationships with players and can, I guess, empathize with the modern player if they sign a younger guy. And that's not just Chauncey, that's any younger player. Like Imo Udoka played at the same time as Chauncey Billups. Like you could make the same argument about his ability to, be able to relate to players. Obviously nowhere near as successful. Imo Udoka was a role player that played in Europe for a lot of his career, but Chauncey has the youth on his side, has the connections on his side, but I think the most important thing is the respect of his peers for what he's accomplished throughout his career, and that can go a long way, as we've seen with other head coaching players to head coaching candidates across the league, or it could go very poorly. There have been plenty of players that have adopted head coaching jobs that haven't gone quite as well. Derek Fisher is one that springs to mind. He won multiple championships with the Lakers, known as a point guard, a shooter, very well respected, union president, not a good coach. He's a good WNBA coach now, and I hope, he has a good coaching career whatever league he decides to coach at. But, there are examples of players not filling a need at coach. Magic Johnson tried his hand at coaching for a moment and then
I would argue Jason Kidd as well.
Yeah.
I don't think that didn't go well. So
Justin, anyone else spring to mind? Any other former players that have just bombed as coaches? I mean, Isaiah Thomas didn't go that great for the Pacers.
I don't know. Did Jim O'Brien play for anyone?
Ooh, yeah. He may have. I mean, look. Obviously, Nate was a decent player. He played with those Sonics teams and did pretty well. But it's a little touch and go at times with All Stars going into coaching. But look, I think it shows an organization that's willing to explore different opportunities. And I want to talk to you guys about the different opportunities they're exploring. It seems like Kevin Pritchard, to his credit, is casting a wide net with his coaching search. Justin, talk about, actually, Alex, I'll start with you because you sent out a couple of tweets lately, a couple of hashtags happening. Are there any candidates that you particularly like? Who are your preferred candidates based on the names that have been leaked through the media?
Well, yeah, much like Chauncey Billiups, I'm going with a former player who's also a winner, and that is Becky Hammon. I know a lot of people seem to have, it's almost you either really want it or you really don't with her. That's at least what I've gauged so far from the responses from Pacers Twitter. But a lot of people are on board with that. She won in the WNBA as a player. She won a gold medal. She won, I think, in the Summer League when she coached the Spurs. So, anywhere she goes, she wins. And, I mean, learning from Pop for, arguably the greatest coach of all time for 6 or 7 years doesn't hurt either. So I think if you're going to go with maybe a more experienced option. I know she hasn't head coached before in the NBA, but she's got a lot of previous experience. So I'm fully on board with that.
Justin, Becky Hammon.
Well, I think it's great we're at a stage you can have a conversation about a woman being an NBA coach. I think it will happen in the league very soon. From all reports, she's a great assistant coach. I don't want her as the Pacers head coach. And that's because I'm just looking under the Greg Popovich kind of family tree. And, it's happened in the NFL as well with Bill Belichick. You'd say Belichick and Popovich are probably two of the best coaches in their respective sports. But you look at Greg Popovich's assistants, let's run through them. Brett Brown just got fired. Jim Boylan just got fired. Alvin Gentry just got fired. Mike Brown fired. Earl Watson fired in his first league. Budenholzer probably fired. He can't succeed in the playoffs. Jock Vaughn struggled for 3 years in Orlando. These are the assistants of Greg Popovich that everyone's gone, oh, we've got to hire assistant of Greg Popovich. Let's steal what the Spurs are doing. None of them have been successful. So what I'm sitting here going is I don't want Becky Hammon. It may be unfair on her, but to me, I'm just going on the history of Greg Popovich's assistants and – I looked into Bill Belichick's assistant coaches. Many NFL. It's so similar. And I think his assistant coaches are a 47% win ratio in the NFL. You can even, say in the Australian League with the Alistair Clarkson assistants, some have been unsuccessful. Brendan Bolton just got fired. just hiring an assistant of a great coach doesn't always work. So for me, Becky Hammond's a no, but I think in the near future, we will have a women's coach.
Yeah, agree. I think, I wouldn't be surprised to see Becky Hammond can't make it to the last few at the very least, if not potentially get the role. It's clear that she's got the resume to be able to get it. And she's definitely well respected among her peers, which, goes a long way in the NBA. I think, as you say, it's fantastic that we're even having the conversation and we're not even bringing gender into the conversation. In terms of candidates that I like the sound of, I probably haven't done a lot of research into a lot of the assistants that have been named. I think I'm probably more looking at the coaches I don't want rather than the coaches that I do, because I don't know enough about the coaches that I may want. But I know that I don't want a guy that's already coached in the league, to be frank. I don't want Dave Yeager. I don't want Jacques Vaughn. I really don't want any of those former head coaches, because those Kenny Atkinson, for example, I don't want coaches that have already failed in the NBA. And failed recently in the NBA, because I don't think it's appropriate to give that sort of a coach the Pacers role, because it seems like a very Pacers thing to do, a very safe move. And I feel like now is the time to take a chance on someone that's unproven. Justin, you and I were talking about this earlier today. Nate McMillan elevated from the assistant coaching role. Frank Vogel elevated from the assistant coaching role. We've always looked inside our own four walls for a coach. We've always looked at voices that are already well established in the organization. We clearly need a new voice on the bench, and we clearly need someone that hasn't potentially had the opportunity to head coach before, and we need to take a chance. So I would be stoked to see a Chauncey Billiups get the opportunity. I'd be stoked to see a Becky Hammond get the opportunity. Any of the assistant coaches that are named, I don't know their pedigree. I don't know what they're known as, what their brand is in terms of whether they're offensive, defensive, relationship, all around. There's no real sort of place you can go. There's no assistant coach basketball reference where you can check these guys and see what they're good at and what they're not. So I just know that I want someone that's a new face, that's a new name, that's a fresh face and a chance. Alex, yeah. Are you against an established coach becoming the next coach of the Pacers?
1,000% with you, man. I saw someone reply to us the other day saying that they wanted, I think Brett Brown, they said was like a top 2 candidate for them. And I was like, no, please.
No.
I mean, what's the point of firing Nate if you're just going to hire Nate 2.0? And that's what they did when they fired Frank Vogel. They hired Frank Vogel 2.0. So yep. I want them to go with someone, like you said, who's maybe unproven, who hasn't maybe been given the shot. And I just want to throw a name out there. You said assistants. I think Dan Craig, with the Bulls targeting Billy Donovan, because I know that they were interviewing Dan Craig as well, with them going after Billy Donovan now, I think he could be a name that's definitely in the top 3 or finalist, if you will, for the Pacers head coaching job. And he's won a G League championship as coach. Also, wasn't I could be wrong here, but wasn't Spolstra a video intern or coordinator before he was a coach?
He was.
And so was Dan Craig. So I don't know, maybe just something there. I'm probably reading too much into it, but I think he's a name we'll see a lot of.
Yeah, it's interesting, Justin. I don't know whether you happen to do any research into these assistants, but is there anyone sort of under the radar that you like the sound of?
Not really, and I'd rather admit I don't than say, I know all about this assistant coach. I think some people try and act like they know all these coaching strategies and what they'd bring to the Pacers when, frankly, we don't know what an assistant coach would bring. We'd only know what past coaches or maybe former players would bring off their playing style. But no assistant coaches that ring a bell with me. I just think it's going to be interesting. Like, I'm of the same school of thought as you two, where I want an unproven coach. And look, if it's someone I've never heard of, I will trust Kevin Pritchard. Obviously, he's interviewing so many people. He's going through such a big interview process that whoever gets the job must have, interviewed the the wall down. They must have been very impressive, and it's going to be interesting that, Alex, I might throw to you. Kevin Pritchard will put, how do you think I should deal with Miles and Domas? He will put that question to every single candidate.
Yep.
And it's scary to think the future of the Pacers is probably in someone's hands we don't even know right now, because I feel that answer the coach gives is going to go a long way to them getting the job, and then a long way to what Kevin Pritchard does with both of them. What do you think, Alex?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's been the conversation since, 14, 15 months ago, since last offseason. Will Domas and Domas and Turner, will they even work, firstly? Secondly, can you find someone that's going to get them to work? I think we saw stages where they were good together. We saw stages where they weren't. I mean, if you're a coach, today's style doesn't really suit two bigs, right? I mean, it's just that simple. So it's definitely a tough conversation, but I think that, J. Michael mentioned this in an interview about a week or so ago. He said that he could see two of the three bigs in Domas, Miles, and Goga get moved this offseason. I think I could easily see, maybe not two of them, but I could easily see either Miles or Domas not being on the roster next season.
Does Kevin Pritchard have a conversation with any player on the roster before making the head coaching decision, Justin?
No.
Any player?
No, because there's, if you asked me 2 years ago, yes, but there's no leader on this team now. Like, who's he going to, I'd say, maybe Brogdon, because Kevin's got so much respect for the way he carries himself and the way he leads. But, I mean, you're not running it past Oladipo. You don't have to run it past Sabonis or Turner. No.
Alex, you disagree?
Well, no, I agree that he shouldn't have to. But you look back at 2 seasons ago, I remember they were going to let Tyreke Evans go after that incident. But I think it was him, KP, Thaddeus Young, and maybe DC as well.
DC.
He ran it past the players and said, you know what, they wanted a chance to see what this group can do. He wanted to trade players. He didn't really want to go after guys like Wesley Matthews, I don't think. But it was the players that influenced that decision because they wanted to compete. So,
if anything, though, does that teach him that that's the wrong way to go about it, and he needs to trust his own gut?
It could do. Maybe.
You can only listen to the players so much. I think what he did that year was incredibly noble and great, but I think he's been patient long enough now. He hasn't swung for the fences since he really took over. I'm not categorizing the Paul George trade on him because he was basically dealt with it. I think this year's his year. This is Kevin Pritchard offseason. Go to work. Listen to your assistant GMs. Adam, I'll put this one to you. If you were interviewing for the head coach's role for the Pacers, would you find it difficult telling Kevin Pritchard that you should trade Domas or Miles?
No.
How honest would you be to get that job?
I think with this. With that sort of role, you have to know that you have to have context. We've just got swept twice in 2 years. There is something amiss with either the makeup of the roster or the personnel themselves, the personalities in the locker room. So I think you have to answer the question as pragmatically as you possibly can to say, we need a full review of this roster. We need to understand what players fit well together and what moves we could possibly make to increase that fit, increase that chemistry, and play the way that we want to play. And here's the way that I want to play. And then you lay it out, obviously, what your brand is, what you value as a coach, what personality traits, what, types of players that you value and you think could be winning players in the league. And, I think you have to lay it all on the line. If you're going to go for this role, you have to be bold. Like, we know that, Nate, Kevin, they're not backwards in coming forwards. They're not going to back down. People in the Pacers organization are going to make their feelings known. They may not get what they want, but they're going to be open and honest. So I think you have to be as open and honest as you possibly can in an interview like that. To a point, you have to be as respectful as you can, because ultimately, if you get this role, you're coaching these players. Like, if there's no move made, you're coaching who you've got, but you also have to say, look, this is my view. This is the view that I'm going to put forward. However, regardless of what happens with this roster, I'm going to coach this team and I'm going to get the best out of the players that I've got. I think that's the response.
Yeah, it's a great answer. It's just always, like you mentioned, it's hard going in interviewing, saying you need to essentially blow this team up.
Yeah.
When it might come across really bad, and Kevin Pritchard might be like, "Hey, that's not happening."
Yeah. The other thing you can't do, like, if you're a prospective coach, you can't walk in there, Alex, and say this team could win a championship next season. Like, can you sit across from Kevin Pritchard on a Zoom call and interview, say that, and do you think that's an appropriate thing to say? Do you think that this team is one good coach away from a championship?
Oh, man. Obviously, the Pacers fan in me wants to say yes, but I look at the competition in the league and, who's left? The Lakers, they have LeBron and AD. The Clippers have two of the best top 10 players. Raptors have 2 All-Stars. So, and
Celtics have 2 All-Stars.
Celtics have, yeah, exactly. So, I think coaching can do a lot. Obviously, it can influence the way you play and everything, and it can make you succeed. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the talent on your roster, you can only go so far. So, man, I think it's going to have to be KP doing a bit of both, isn't it? It's going to have to be finding the right coach, but also understanding that what the roster you have right now probably is not going to win you a championship.
No. I'm so on the fence about it because, what do you guys think is the Pacers ceiling? I'm just like, we're such a long way away.
I still think conference finals. I still think they can make the conference finals.
But yeah, we got swept 2 years in a row. It doesn't look great. But then you look at it, we had the 7th best record in the league this year, 4th seed without basically a whole starting lineup playing together. So you look at it like that. Are we a step or two away? Do we just need to get a better coach and get some better bench players, which I've been preaching for years?
The ceiling for this team, I think, is sneaking into the conference finals and losing, in a conference finals. And that's the absolute ceiling for me. I don't think the ceiling for this team is winning a conference finals and getting to a championship, let alone competing for that championship. So if your ceiling is the 4th best team in the league or the 5th best team in the league, then maybe you're one move away from a championship. And if there's a GM that's capable of upgrading a position or getting, a really good return for a guy like Victor Oladipo, it's Kevin Pritchard. So, you have the greatest of faith in his ability to be able to make a move. But I think the roster is presently constructed with, the chemistry issues that have been reported with, Victor Oladipo not necessarily being, committed long-term to the team and not showing, his all-star form. I don't see the ceiling of this team to be any more than the 4th or 5th best team in the league, which is not a championship. Justin?
Did you guys hear the rumor, and God, I hope it's not true, that Oladipo was very, very sour on the attention TJ Warren got in the bubble?
I didn't hear that. No.
I've heard it from a credible source, and I'll drop that as the Paceroos. Credible source that he was very unhappy that TJ Warren was the leading player on SportsCenter. He wanted the attention as Oladipo's come back from injury. He's putting it all on the line. But
drop 53 points then, buddy. Drop 53 points.
That whole media. I mean, TJ Warren was, you guys know, he was on the jump. He was being interviewed by Rachel Nichols. He was everywhere. And from what I hear, that rubbed Oladipo the wrong way. And I know rumor's a rumor. You never know what to believe in. But, geez, you saw his attitude in the bubble. I'm inclined to think some of that may have been true.
If there was one thing I wasn't expecting on this show, it was an exclusive from yourself, Justin. Alex, what's your rapid reaction to that?
Oh, I think I almost just threw up, mate. Like Justin said, I hope that's not true because, God, that is a shocking look, isn't it? Especially you're the franchise guy. That is, fingers crossed that's not true.
I was just surprised as you guys. I wouldn't raise it on the show if I didn't hear it from someone I believe. It's not just someone on Twitter. And all I can go off is my own two eyes. And geez, I mean,
From what we
dude,
saw, it wouldn't surprise us. Yeah.
No, the body language doctor, thought that Vic's body language was not great. It was really bad in different times. He was obviously after the Miami game. We know that's been publicized. His comments following the season, but the body language wasn't great. And this is coming from three people that own Victor Oladipo jerseys. Like this is not people who aren't supporters of this guy, but you can only go off what you see because we're not having a conversation with the guy. We can't get inside his head and figure out what he's thinking. But the optics haven't looked good since the start of the year for Victor Oladipo, and I think we've discussed it at length. Quickly, guys, before we wrap up, I want to talk NBA as a wider league. We're obviously deep into the playoffs right now. We're heading towards a Game 7 between Boston and Toronto. Miami are already booked into the Eastern Conference Finals, and I feel a hell of a lot better about the sweep now than compared to what I did a couple of weeks ago. It looks like it's probably going to be Lakers-Clippers on the other side, which is exciting. Just a very quick prediction. Who at the moment is your prediction to win the NBA championship, Alex?
Oh, man. It pains me to say, but I'll go Clippers. I'll go Clippers. It's all right. Which actually still pains me to say, by the way, because PG. It does PG-13. So yeah.
Look, I did send my friends a text the other day saying I'm ready to turn off the Clippers Heat finals. I'm ready to just turn it off. Good luck.
There's no winners there.
Good luck to both teams. The only loser is Pacers fans. But that's certainly what it looks like we're heading towards. Miami look completely unstoppable.
Yeah.
Although Toronto and Boston, I think, are playing better than Milwaukee were playing, so that will be a test for them. The Clippers just look like a Leviathan in the playoffs. They look unbelievable. I was a fan of Denver. I hope that Denver would go further, but it's hard to go past the Clippers and the Heat right now. Justin, what do you think?
Couldn't agree more. Basically stole the words from my mouth. Miami's been the best performers to me. Obviously, we watched all 4 games against Indiana, 5 games against Milwaukee. Funny that Boston-Toronto series has gone 7 games. If OG Anunoby doesn't hit that game-winning 3 in Game 3,
it's talk about it, mate. I don't want to talk about OG.
It's probably a clean sweep, 4-0. But now it's going to Game 7, so it shows what one shot can do. Who I think will win it all? Yeah, I don't know. Lakers don't have they don't have good enough shooters. I want to say Lakers because I'd love for them to do it for Kobe. I just think
cool story.
Frank Vogel as well.
Vogel, man, I want Vogel to win a championship so bad. Like I've met that guy, nicest guy. I would literally be so happy for that guy if he wins a championship. So I'm going to say Lakers, but that's just because my heart, like with Pacers out, I always said this is the one year I want Lakers to win it.
I'm cheering for a Toronto Lakers finals. I'm cheering for that. I think, if we got a Toronto Lakers finals, I think that'd be really cool. I think it'd be a really cool story on both sides. Toronto doing it without Kawhi. The Lakers, in light of what the year's been, I think that'd be a very cool way to end the year. And I think they'd only be winners at the end of the day. So that's what I'm pulling for.
Can you imagine if Lakers won it all, how much Instagram stories LeBron would post with
hashtags.
Mm-hmm. Like, I reckon he'd have to make another account because Instagram would block stories.
Also, a OG Finals MVP might send Pacers Twitter into depression.
No, I can't, guys. I can't. I ignored the first time you brought it up. I'm now and forever banning any mention of the words OG Anunoby unless it's in context of a Pacers trade for OG Anunoby. I'm out, guys. I'm out. I'm done.
Let's quickly. I'll hit you two with a hard-hitting question since we're kind of on the subject. Will TJ Leaf be on the roster next year? Yes or no?
He's going to be in Maccabi next year.
I was going to say on the Maccabi roster. Yes, he will be on the Maccabi roster next year. I wish him all the best in EuroLeague, and I think he's going to put up numbers. And I think he's going to be one of those players that goes to Europe, kills it, and then comes back as a grizzled veteran and plays an important role on an NBA team, in about 5 years' time. So I think I think he needs some development. He needs some time. He needs some minutes. He needs someone to show a lot of faith in him. And I wish him all the very best in his future endeavours. And I think we'll end it there, guys. This has been
just depressing, isn't it?
Very depressing end to the episode, but I can't believe I'm going to say this. Go Lakers.